Welcome back, SethBling here, and today I want to share with you a speedrun of speedruns. This is my personal best time for the Mario Credits Hour, which is a challenge I talked about and sort of told you the rules for earlier in the week. And basically the challenge is to beat the first 8 Mario games in under an hour. And to do that, I'm going to be, as you'll see, using credits warps. So there's 8 games, 4 of them don't use any credits warps, and 4 of them do, which is cool that there's that many credits warps in Mario games. The ones that don't use credits warps, I will be using regular warps, like in Super Mario Brothers, the game you're watching right now. I'll be using warp pipes to skip from World 1 to World 4, and then from World 4 to World 8. I'm getting a Fire Flower here in Super Mario Brothers for, well, basically to make the game easier. It's just a lot easier if you can shoot enemies out of your way, and at the very end, it'll also help me beat Bowser a lot easier, and just to make the game a lot safer. My goal here is not to play each individual game super fast. It's really just to chain them all together as fast as I can. So the more runs I can get through Super Mario Brothers 1, the more chances I get to play. So there you can see the warp from World 1 to World 4. Yes, I'm going to be commentating this whole hour long, well, it's actually 58 minutes and 36 seconds, speedrun of speedruns. This, of course, was based on the Super Mario Hour challenge by Darbian, which was to complete 6 Mario games in under an hour. That challenge did not include some games that are in this challenge, and it also included a game which is not in this challenge. So Super Mario 64, which was the only 3D Mario in the Super Mario Hour, the original one by Darbian. I'm not including that, so it's all 2D games. My version has has 2 Game Boy games and also Yoshi's Island for Super Nintendo. So here you can see me executing the famous 4-2 wrong warp. I'm not doing it nearly as optimally as the speedrunning pros, you can see, but I did get through there. That pipe will normally not take you to this warp zone, but if you manipulate the camera correctly, you can get it to take you to this warp zone. And then on to World 8. And World 8 is the hardest part of this game. I mess it up quite a lot. Interestingly, you know, it's an hour-long speedrun with 8 games, but most of my runs die in this game. If I take any hits and lose firepower, I don't really know strategies to beat the game as Small Mario, and in 8-3 you'll see there's a lot of Hammer Brothers. Hammer Brothers can have a different pattern every time you reach them, and they can... It's basically very hard to get past them as Small Mario, in my experience, but I'm not like super good at the game. I just wanted an easy way to try and get through the game, so I tried to learn a strategy that I thought I could learn quickly, and Fire Flower was it. But for the other games, I do have more backup strategies, and I know what to do if I get hit and take damage and lose my power-up and stuff like that. So a lot of runs will die in this game because I will take an accidental hit and lose my firepower, and I don't really know how to get it back, and so I just reset. But that's okay, because it's the first game in the list. 8-2 here specifically is an especially hard one. There's just a lot of difficult platforming. There's some enemies that can get you. There's a bullet bill launcher at the end that'll sometimes just launch a bill right at you. But overall, this game is pretty straightforward. Just a lot of pretty basic platforming and just getting through it. So the next level you'll see coming up here is the level I was talking about with all the Hammer Brothers, 8-3. So let's see. This challenge I completed actually on the first day of attempts. So the very first day I did get a 59-minute and I think 13-second time. So I was able to get it under an hour on the first day, which is, I mean, maybe not that unsurprising, because I have, given all of my personal best times in all the games, I have about 8 minutes of leeway in terms of mistakes that I can make. If I got like personal best, if I tied my personal best in each of the games, it would be about a 52-minute speedrun. There is some consideration maybe to adding Mario 64 back into the end, because that would be the next one in release order of the Mario games. And the 1-star route for Mario 64, if you're like really, really good and get really good luck and everything can be done in about 8 minutes. So there is probably room for the Mario 64 run at the end. But you'll see there's a lot of things that can screw with you and make it very hard to actually achieve that time, especially once we get to the credits warps, where, especially in Super Mario Land 2. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is the very last level in Super Mario Brothers. There was a wrong warp to get to this room from the previous room. You just scroll the camera ahead of where you normally would, and if you enter that pipe, it normally would not take you to that underwater area, but the wrong warp lets you do it. So as soon as I touch the hammer, the axe, whatever it is, that counts as completing the game, and I'm allowed to power off the console and switch cartridges and start the next game. And the next game in this case is going to be Super Mario Brothers 2, but it's the Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2. So there's actually two Super Mario Brothers 2. There was the one released in Japan and the one released in North America. The one released in Japan was eventually released in North America, but it was called The Lost Levels. So it was released on Super Mario All-Stars as The Lost Levels. And it is pretty notoriously hard. So the original release of the game, though, the one that I'm playing, is has a little bit of a weird release. So it was only ever released for the Famicom. Oh, you can see I actually slowed down there to get a 1-up. So if the last digit of your timer and both digits of your coin count are all the same number, which in this case was 0, you get a 1-up. So I waited until the last digit on my timer was 0, so I could get a 1-up just for safety. It actually loses quite a bit of time, like 4 seconds, but 4 seconds is worth the added safety in this stage of the game. Anyway, so this game was only ever released for the Famicom Disk System, and so the Famicom was the Japanese version of the Nintendo, the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. The Famicom stands for Family Computer. You can see me going sort of over the level. This is how you get to the warp zone in 1-2. It's actually like, it looks a little bit like the warp zone in 1-2 from Super Mario Brothers, the original, but it's like there's a whole added room. Oh, here's a double jump glitch. If you're not pressing jump when you pick up a power-up, you can then press jump, start holding jump while you're picking up the power-up, and you can double jump. There's a lot to talk about. Okay, so anyway, finally we can actually get to the warp zone. They put a lot of extra barriers in the way. So from 1-2 you warp to 4-1, and then I'll be completing 4-1 normally. I will be picking up a fire flower here in 4-1, but the rest of World 4 is a lot of platforming and the fire flower definitely helps though. Okay, so the Famicom was the like NES equivalent in Japan, same circuit board and everything. So they play all the same games. There was a peripheral they released for the Famicom called the Famicom Disk System, and it basically plugged into your Famicom, and it would play floppy disks. And so what you would do is you would buy a floppy disk, and you could take it to a kiosk in a mall in Japan. It sounds a little weird, but this is my understanding of how it worked. You would take it to a mall in Japan, and you could like pay them to like put the game on your floppy disk. This is how digital distribution worked before the internet. It's a little bizarre, but so the only way this game was ever released, the only way you could actually play it like from Nintendo before they released it as the Lost Levels, was through the Famicom Disk System and taking your disc to a mall in Japan. So, but that's not how I'm playing it. I don't have a Famicom. I don't have a Famicom Disk System. The way that I'm playing it is I'm using a flash cartridge called the EverDrive N8. And the EverDrive N8 has like a flash card that has a bunch of ROMs on it, and it also can emulate the Famicom Disk System. So it is a cartridge in my in my NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, but it's kind of emulating the hardware of the Famicom Disk System. And so actually at the end of 4-4 here, you're going to see a black screen for about 5 seconds. And that is basically the cartridge emulating you turning the floppy disk over so that it can read the other side, and it'll just read all the data from the other side. So you can play the rest of the game, Worlds 5 and on. It's a little wacky, but here we are right at the end of World 4. Just fire here actually can save time because you get to kill Bowser faster. When you kill Bowser like that, when you hit the hammer, you don't have to wait for the bridge to collapse. And so it's a little bit faster, usually, to kill Bowser with fire and then hit the hammer. But in that case, I had to dodge Bowser. I got a little scared. It was pretty slow. But so there's that loading screen for the second half of the game. It's a funny little relic of times past. So that is how I'm playing this game. Yeah, you can buy a Famicom Disk System and a Famicom, but they cost like $150 or something. So I decided this is how I wanted to do it, because I already had the flash cartridge anyway. I've been using the flash cartridge to practice. I have practice ROMs for some of these games. So for this game, SMB1 and SMB2 U, which is the North American version. Here there's a glitch where you could do like a super jump off one of those Koopas. I don't really know how to do it. I just do it this safe way. It's not that much slower. 5-2, we're gonna see the second set of warp, or I guess the second warp pipe of the game. And it's, actually it doesn't require going over the level, but to make the level easy for myself, I will go over the level. I wanted to make things as simple as possible. This game is very hard. You'll see it especially in World 8, 8-1, and I think 8-4 are just like especially tough. At the beginning of 8-4, you're going to see a jump, which is just totally unfair. And I'll explain what goes into making that work. So yeah, here I run over the level because this is like one of the few easy parts of the run where you can just run over a level. It's actually kind of tricky though to even hit that vine on that run up. You have to like turn around and slow down to hit the vine pipe or vine block. So yeah, here we go. Here's the warp pipe to World 8. World 8 is tricky. 8-1 specifically is tricky. I figured out some ways to make it a little bit easier, like bonking into that pipe lets me run into those Koopas. There's a super jump here if you time it right. And then, yeah, you having fire really helps clear out some of these enemies too. Yeah. 8-2 and 8-3 aren't as bad, especially with fire. It helps a lot. But I do know how to actually clear those levels without fire in this game. The Hammer Brothers, I think, are a little bit more predictable sometimes in this game than they were in SMB1. This game is real tough, though. If you ever try playing it, like, just casually, just be prepared for it to wreck you. I'd recommend just playing it with save states. Here's wind. There's just, like, wind in this part with, like... giant pits. That water down there is not safe. If you fall into it, it's just like the water is essentially just background. You just fall straight through it. It's death. So yeah, this game is real tough. But once you practice it, well, once I practiced it, it's not as bad as I originally thought. I originally felt like it was just totally unfair, but it's pretty unfair still. So yeah, here in this level, you'll see I'm using the fireball a lot. Clear out Hammer Brothers and stuff. Makes it way easier, but because of the way that the Hammer Brothers are a little bit more predictable in this game, you can actually kind of jump over them in a predictable way as without firepower. So it's not that hard to clear this level. There's like invisible blocks there I just jumped on. I didn't just like float in midair. There's a lot of invisible blocks actually in that level, and if you don't realize they're there, they can get you. You can think you're jumping over a Hammer Brother and then you just smash it in the face. Okay, at the beginning of 8-4, I have to hold jump, run, and right at the beginning. And it... okay, I messed it up. Well, it's a really tricky jump. You have to like tap left for a very small amount of time, like a frame or two, and then hit right again. So you have to slow down basically as you're falling down from the top stair to the bottom stair. And then you have to jump. You have like a couple frames to jump on the bottom stair. It's a really, 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 really stupidly hard jump. And there's just no safe way to do that jump. I don't think that they playtested this game, like this level specifically. It's just insane how hard that jump is. You can like try and jump down to the bottom layer and make the jump from there. I don't know. And then like the next room here also has a very difficult jump for the same reasons. It's like very hard to jump around a corner like that. So we end up jumping off an invisible wall on the right side. But even that is like very, very tight on the timing. So there's a long run up here, but at the end of this section, I'm gonna take the section safe, but I'm also gonna grab a mushroom. The mushroom will allow me to do a clip in the next room. I'll clip into the floor. Doesn't work unless you're big. So normally if I had just kept firepower and not died, I'd be able to do this clip. But it's actually a very easy clip to do. As long as you just run off the pipe and just jump, you'll be able to do the clip. But yeah, at this point, there's really nothing that can stop me from beating the game. Even if I take a hit to Bowser, you just hit the axe and move on. At this point in the run, I'm very happy because those two games are the hardest, they're the least forgiving, and I get to play Super Mario Bros. 2, which is maybe my favorite game to run out of the 8. So we're going to do Super Mario Bros. 2, and then after this is going to be the first credits warp of the run. So there's, like I said, there's 4 regular runs and 4 credits warps. This is the 3rd regular run, and then we're going to have the first credits warp. So Super Mario Bros. 2 is, I actually think, a really fun game. It gets a lot of crap for being... it was originally a Japanese game called Doki Doki Panic that they kind of reskinned and modified a little bit for the American release as Super Mario Bros. 2. And so it gets a lot of crap for just being like a reskinned game. And I don't think it deserves any of the crap. I think it's actually a really fun game. I had a lot of fun learning how to speedrun it. It's a fun game to speedrun. It's like pretty forgiving, but there's still a lot of ways you can optimize how you like get through the levels and speed. There's a lot of cool glitches actually in the original release of the game. A lot of those glitches got patched out for the All-Stars release, but the original release on NES does have quite a few that can like be very difficult time saves. So there's 4 characters you can select. You select a character at the beginning of each level, and they each have kind of a different power. So Luigi, you could see, was very floaty. He jumped really high. Toad picks up enemies really fast. And so this is a glitch called the carpet glitch. If you have 2 active carpets on screen at the same time, or kind of loaded at the same time, one of them will move twice as fast, and so you can just blaze through that level. So Toad picks up objects really fast, and also when he's carrying an enemy, he runs like 30% faster or something. He runs much faster. So for like good speedrunners, Toad is the character of choice in most levels, because like I said, he runs a lot faster, and that's, it's called speedrunning. Basically run fasting. And so you can see him running pretty fast here, but I actually don't choose to use Toad in most of the levels for safety purposes. Princess Peach makes a lot of the jumps way easier because how floaty she is. So that's the first warp from World 1 to World 4. I use Luigi in some levels because he can jump higher, especially like vertical levels like 7-1. Being able to jump higher is just a faster way to clear a lot of this stuff. He's also used in 6-3. Actually, anyway, doesn't matter. I'll get there when I get there. So yeah, Luigi jumps higher, Toad runs faster when he's got an enemy, and he picks up stuff faster. Peach can float, like I was saying. She kind of, it's an ability that she has, I think, in Smash Brothers. I guess Luigi also has this ability in Smash Brothers, the really high jumping. And then Mario doesn't really have a special ability. He's just kind of somewhat good at everything. And we don't use Mario. Even I don't use Mario in any of these levels, because he just doesn't like stand out at anything. So there usually isn't a reason to use him. So I will actually be using no Mario in this Mario game. So yeah, here you can see Peach's signature floaty move. Okay, so there is something I found out after I started doing these runs this week, which is apparently on the Super Mario All-Stars release of this game, there's a faster way through the game. In Super Mario All-Stars, you can save and quit, and then level select up to any level that you've beat. So if you warp to World 4, it kind of counts Worlds 1 through 3 as being beat, and you can warp to World 4-1. So if you warp to World 4, you can actually save and quit, and then go back to World 3, which lets you then warp from World 3 to World 5, and World 5 to World 7. And so instead of going 1, 4, 6, 7 like I'm doing, you can go 1, 4, 3, 5, 7. Anyway, it ends up being a little bit faster. Like maybe it's the world record's like 40 seconds faster for that type of speed run. Oh yeah, there was the warp to World 6. I don't know if I mentioned it. Here I have to go digging for a key. It's like kind of slow, but you just have to do it. So the rules of this game aren't like really. There's nothing super official. It can kind of just be whatever you want. And in the spirit of the rules is just like do whatever you need to beat the games fast, right? I'm using credits warps in 4 of the games. Does credits warping even count as beating the game? It's totally subjective. So I think it would totally be in the spirit of the rules to use the Mario All-Stars release of this game. There I took damage, but it was okay because you basically become big at the beginning of every level. And so you get basically 1 free damage per level, pretty much. And there's not really like power-ups in levels like there are in other games. Anyway, I probably would have learned the All-Stars save and quit route if I had realized that it would be faster. But I didn't know that until I started running and somebody mentioned it. So that's another way you could save some time on this run. And another way that might help to like make enough time for adding Mario 64 to the run. That's kind of interesting. So this looks like an auto-scroller, but with Luigi, you can actually treat it as a regular level by just like jumping really high and jumping from bird to bird. I know how to do it, but it's hard enough that I didn't want to include it in this run because I just thought the odds of messing up and dying were too high. And I just wanted to have something safe. It does save a fair amount of time though. I don't remember how much. It's like 18 seconds or 12 seconds. Or it's like a fair amount of time, but just not worth the risk for me. In this level, you're going to see a potion jump. This is just kind of like a shell jump or whatever in other Mario games. You just throw the potion off the wall and jump off of it. Looks kind of cool. And that skips a lot of the level. Normally you would go under the sand there to get to that secret door, but you can just potion jump. Birdo in this game can really be difficult. Oh, there, I got a double hit. That's a cool little glitch. If you hit Birdo just after he/she/they shoot an egg, you can actually get the egg to also hit Birdo. And you can get a double hit in, and that's kind of cool. Oh man, had a little trouble there. Not too bad though. Yeah. So that's the end of World 6. That's sort of the boss of World 6. In World 7, there's only 2 levels for some reason. All the other worlds have 3. So this is a vertical level. A lot of the level is very vertical, and so Luigi makes a lot of sense in this level. You can just like jump on platforms that you wouldn't be able to jump on with other characters. So this is actually like a little skip. You can jump over a part of the over the pillar right there that you would not like think you could jump over. But if you time your jump right off the Sniffit, which was the enemy I jumped off of, you can actually jump over it. It's a pretty easy time save actually. There's a super jump. If you hold duck for long enough, you build up a super jump. That Sniffit on the left will just snipe you, and there's nothing you can do about it. This Birdo has a funny little glitch associated with him, or her/it. So I'm gonna get to the exit. Hey Birdo! It respawns when you kind of go left and come back to the right. Alright, and then the final level of the game, I choose to use Princess Peach. There's merit to using different characters. But I like Princess Peach for this room where there's just a lot of enemies to get over, and being able to float just helps a lot with getting past them. In the next room, I'm going to use a glitch called a chain jump. So after you like climb off of a ladder or a chain or a vine in this game, for some number of frames you can jump. And it varies by character how many frames you get. For Princess Peach, I just tested it, and it's 3 frames. So it's a 3-frame window after you come off the chain if you're holding up to jump, and you can actually jump. I sometimes get stuck in that part for like dozens of seconds just trying to chain jump. It can be very hard. It's just like, I don't know, for some reason it's just hard to time. So this is the second to last boss of the game. That bird, which is normally the exit to the level, comes alive and you have to fight it. It's a big, shocking betrayal. And then the boss of the game here is Wart, who really doesn't like veggies. So I took damage at the very beginning. It's okay. I can, spoiler warning, I didn't die. But it is pretty easy to get hit. But yeah, so you just have to pick up the veggies and throw them at him. They spawn from these little tubes in the same pattern every time. So you always know, if you have it memorized, you can know exactly where you need to be to pick up the veggies. And I found this fight really challenging when I was first learning it, and there's different ways to approach it, but it actually is, I don't think it's that hard anymore. Especially if you know, there's also a pattern to how Wart spits out bubbles, and if you know how to avoid those, it's really not too bad. Okay, so the next game up is going to be the first credits warp. It'll be Super Mario Brothers 3. I had a little bit of trouble getting the game to load correctly. You can see I have a camera pointed at my CRT television, so you can actually see what's going on even when the video capture card doesn't quite have the signal yet. I also have a camera pointed at my NES and my Super Nintendo, so you can see me swapping games and powering on the consoles and stuff like that. So Super Mario Brothers 3, like I said, it's going to be a pretty short game here. Is a credits warp. You pick up 2 warp whistles, just like if you were going to World 8 to go kill Bowser for a normal speedrun. So you pick up 2 warp whistles, but instead of going to World 8, you actually go to World 7. And in 7-1, there is a convenient pipe glitch, which you can use to get out of bounds and then hit a glitched block that is in out of bounds garbage territory. And when you hit that glitch block, it'll trigger some code that you write to the sprite X coordinate table. So this trick of writing code to the sprite X coordinate table is going to be used in 3 of the games. 3 of the credits warps. So this is an arbitrary code execution glitch. You're making the game run data that you've injected into the game as code. And so the way that manifests in this game is that I'm going to be despawning Koopas at specific X coordinates, which you'll also see in Super Mario World. Works a little bit different in Yoshi's Island. So despawning Koopas at specific X coordinates. And yeah, you'll see how that all works. In this level, I have a really hard time with that specific jump. I don't know what it is about it. It's only 1 tile wide, but it's just unreasonably hard for me. Let's see if I die again. Okay, I got it the second time. Luckily, in this level, there is a mushroom, but in this game, you can't like replay levels that you've already beat. And so, like, if there wasn't a mushroom in this level, I would just have to reset, because I do need that leaf in order to get the second warp whistle. Unfortunately, like I was saying, you can't like go back and replay old levels. So in the next level, if I take a hit before I kill certain enemies, there's no way to actually get a leaf in that level, and I have to reset the console and start again, because there's just no way for me to get the leaf back. Here you'll see me going into World 2, rather than using the warp whistle immediately. I have to do this because if I use the warp whistle from the warp zone, it would automatically take me to World 8. But I don't want to go to World 8, I want to go to World 7. So I have to go to World 2, and then use a warp whistle from there to go to World 7. So here in 7-1, there's a little bit of shenanigans. Some of the things I'm doing here are to basically load the sprites in a certain order, so that they have a certain, like, their X coordinates are arranged in a certain order in the sprite X coordinate table, so that when I despawn them, the code will be in the right order. Taking this very safe, but I need to grab this shell and despawn it at a certain X coordinate, and then the other 2 Koopas that are on screen right now also need to be despawned at certain X coordinates. It's very lucky that if you just bop them into those blocks, they happen to land at the right X coordinate. This one is a little bit less lucky, but if you basically have to like stomp on it to make it come to a stop at a certain X coordinate. And it's a little tricky to do that reliably, so it took me a few attempts here to get it in the right spot. But that's all of the code. It's only 3 bytes of code. Or no, there's a 4th byte of code. That's right, there's a 4th byte of code. So I basically go up this pipe, and then when I go back down the pipe, I both take damage, and also the Koopa is frozen in spot and despawns at that X coordinate. And that is the last byte of code that we need to write. And so here I am trying to do a pipe glitch. So in this game, there's wall jumps where you sort of like clip into a wall, and if you happen to be on top of a pixel of like a tile, which a tile is 16 pixels tall, or maybe it's only 8 actually, then you can do a jump, or if it's a pipe block, you can actually clip into it and it'll enter a pipe. Now, when you enter a pipe, the game just makes you keep going until you hit a pipe exit block. And there's no pipe exit blocks, so it just keeps, basically this level is scrolling down, 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 until you get to some garbage data from out of bounds, where it's not even reading level data anymore. And while that's happening, I was actually switching controllers. And I'll talk about why I was switching controllers in a second. Anyway, once I get out of bounds far enough, I can just jump and hit a glitched note block. And long story short, the glitched note block runs code that I wrote to the sprite X coordinate table. All right, so I switched controllers. I'll talk about why that is. This is Super Mario Land. This was the first Game Boy Mario game, and it is a little bit strange. It doesn't look, I mean, it obviously looks a little bit primitive because it's on a Game Boy and it's got kind of primitive graphics. It has some really wonky physics. If you pick it up and you start playing it, you'll notice immediately that there's some weird things going on with the physics. So I'll talk about that. First, let me mention like why there's Game Boy graphics on screen, because that might be a little confusing. So like I said, this is a Game Boy game, but I'm not playing it on a handheld Game Boy. I'm playing it on a Super Game Boy, which was a cartridge released by Nintendo, which you would plug a Game Boy cartridge into, and then I took damage, so I needed a backup mushroom. You would plug a Game Boy cartridge into this Super Game Boy, and then you would put the Super Game Boy into your Super Nintendo, and it basically just allowed you to play any Game Boy game on a Super Nintendo. And so that's what I'm using, and it like drew all these graphics around the Game Boy frame, because the Game Boy frame has a lower resolution than the Super Nintendo. So it just like, it actually lets you change what frame you want to use. I'm using a Super Game Boy 2, which was the second revision. It's got more accurate timing. The first Super Game Boy ran at the frame rate of the Super Nintendo and not at the frame rate of the Game Boy, which is just like a little bit faster. So if you actually use an original Super Game Boy, it runs the game slightly too fast, and that's not allowed. Don't do it. I don't know. Anyway, so it's recommended to use a Super Game Boy 2 for speedruns. Otherwise, you're cheating. Okay, so why did I mess with my controllers? So what I did during the that long descent into the out of bounds area in Super Mario Bros. 3, I pulled the controller out of the NES and plugged it into the Super Nintendo. That sounds weird. It might sound weird to you because the Super Nintendo controllers and the NES controllers are different controllers. They have a different controller port. And the way that works is I actually made my own adapter that allows you to plug a Super Nintendo controller into an NES. So it turns out that a Super Nintendo controller and an NES controller are very closely related. In fact, a Super Nintendo controller is essentially the electronics of two NES controllers just kind of glued together. So when an NES or a Super Nintendo wants to know what buttons are being held down, the way that it works is it sends a bunch of requests saying, hey, what's the next bit? Like, give me the first bit, give me the second bit, give me the third bit, etc. And so on the NES, it asks for 8 bits. And on the Super Nintendo, it asks for 16 bits. But the way that it asks for those bits is exactly the same. And it uses the same wires to do it and everything. And so you can actually, if you get like a Super Nintendo controller extension cable and an NES controller extension cable and cut them and then splice the wires together correctly, you can make your own adapter that'll allow you to plug in the Super Nintendo controller into the NES. And that is what I have done because I really like my Super Nintendo controller. I much prefer it for speedrunning, and so I wanted to use it for every game. So at the end of SMB3, when I'm going down that super long pipe, I unplug my Super Nintendo controller and plug it into the Super Game Boy, or the Super Nintendo. I also plug in just like a regular NES controller into the NES, because I have to, at the very end of SMB3, I have to jump into that invisible note block that's glitched. And so I have to do a single jump at the very end of that run. So I need something plugged in. It saves a little bit of time to do this while I'm going down the pipe instead of having to switch the controllers after I finish the game. So I like to do it during that giant pipe descent. That was a long explanation. This is, I'm now almost halfway through Super Mario Land. This is one of the 2 auto-scrollers in the game where you're in a submarine or a airplane. You get to shoot bullets. It's just like a totally different style of game from the rest of, the side-scroller game. I haven't talked at all about the mechanics of this game. So in this game, there's kind of like 2 levels of power-ups, just like in Super Mario Brothers. There's the mushroom, which makes you big, and then there's not a fire flower, but rather a super ball flower. So this flower you pick up, and it lets you shoot super balls. And super balls are kind of like fireballs, except you know how fireballs have gravity, and that makes them bounce along the ground? Well, super balls don't have gravity. They just sort of like bounce around in straight lines. Like they go in straight lines diagonally and bounce off walls and ceilings and floors. It makes them actually very hard to use because they don't like follow the path of the floor. And so if you don't immediately hit something with your Super Ball, it's just going to bounce around like crazy. They actually have a Super Ball power-up in Super Mario Maker 2 that you can get, which came from this game originally. So I think in this run I do get a Super Ball at some point. So at the end of each world, you get a bonus. So it's either 1, 2, or 3 lives or a super flower. I basically have practiced this game as if I never have a Super Ball, because Super Ball power, Super Flower, whatever it's called, because it's so useless in a lot of situations. Most enemies you can just jump over, and it's just not that useful. Not like in Super Mario Brothers or Lost Levels, where you can kill a lot of enemies with it and like make the game easier. So I practiced all the levels basically as if I was small or big, like not using any fire power or Super Ball power. There is one exception, which is in 4-1, that I can clear a couple enemies, but so there's 4 worlds in this game. This game is actually pretty short. There's 4 worlds. Each world has 3 levels. There's no warp pipes, no warp whistles, no way of warping whatsoever. So in this game, I just clear it by playing all the levels back to back, and that's it. Just kind of got to go through them. A lot of platforming, pretty straightforward. I kind of wish there was some cool like trickery. There's only like one really major glitch in this game, which is screen wrap, but it doesn't even work in the version of the game that I have. Yeah, this level's got some pretty difficult platforming. So some of the physics quirks, we'll call them physics quirks, in this game involve, you may notice like when I run off of a platform, I guess you won't really see it in this level. Let me talk about something else first. When you're on the ground, you accelerate to full speed immediately. So if you're stopped and then you press left or right, like on the very next frame, okay, there you actually saw it. When I walked off the platform, I dropped like a rock. And it can get you sometimes. Yeah, there you see it again. You immediately gain maximum negative velocity when you walk off a platform. And it takes some getting used to, I'll say that. But yeah, when you're out like standing still and you press left or right and you're running, you'll immediately be at full speed. And so that's kind of helpful for being able to like make long jumps. You know, you can make the jump as if you're at running speed from a standstill if you just like press right and then the next frame start pressing jump. But it also means if you're like standing on a small ledge and you press right, within a couple frames you're going to be off the ledge because you're going at full speed. So it's very jarring if you're not used to it, and even if you are used to it, it still kills me plenty. Definitely takes some getting used to. So that's why I can like jump off these boulders at full speed, even though I'm not like, it looks like I'm not moving horizontally at all. It looks like I have no horizontal velocity, and then all of a sudden I'm just... Anyway, so that was the end of World 3. This game does have a pretty like linear difficulty ramp. World 1 is relatively easy. World 2 is also pretty easy. World 3 gets kind of challenging, and then World 4 is pretty hard. Oh, Daisy. At the end of each world, you like find Daisy, and then an enemy comes and captures her, I guess. Okay, so I didn't actually get a Super Ball in this run, it looks like. So I won't be able to shoot these enemies. Oh, in fact, I even needed a mushroom. Yeah, this level is like pretty challenging. Oh, here's a good example of getting full speed immediately. Actually, this level has a lot of examples of getting full speed immediately, I think. When you start running. This level is just like, I guess, a Japanese caricature of China or something. The music sounds kind of Chinese. It's got kind of like a Chinese art style in the background. It's like pretty interesting. I don't think Nintendo would necessarily make this level in 2020, but or I guess this level or the next one. It's got like Chinese music. Oh man. Yeah, this part has so many bullets, and you just have to like. I did it pretty well there, but sometimes you're like falling through the midst of 5 bullets, and you just have to like in midair maneuver between them, and it can be real tough, but I did it okay that time. Yeah, so the end of this level, I'm going to be getting a star. You'll notice the I think you should be able to hear it. The music for the stars are well, it's something recognizable, but it's not the normal Mario music that you would or the Mario Star music that you would expect. But I think you should be able to hear it. I go real slow through this section. You can go a lot faster, but it's tricky to dodge all those fireballs. Here we go. It's the can-can. The music for the star in this game is the can-can. So one thing that's worth noting is that this game was not made by Shigeru Miyamoto and his team. It was made by a different team. So they definitely took inspiration from the existing Mario games up to this point. And again, since these are done and I'm running these games in release order, you know which games were already released up to this point. So yeah, it was done based like on some of the lore from the previous games, but you could tell that the team was like kind of reinventing the wheel in some places. So this is the last level of the game. It's another auto-scroller, just like the submarine level. All of the mechanics are exactly the same. It's different enemies, but the bullets and everything, the movements, it's all exactly the same. It's just a reskin. It's kind of a long level, and at the end you fight Tatanga, the alien who's kidnapped Princess Daisy. This is the game that Princess Daisy is from. It takes place in Sarasa Land, which is not Mushroom Kingdom. It's a whole different kingdom. Anyway, this level's a little bit... It's just kind of slow, and it actually... I think it's got an okay design for an auto-scroller. I think the AI of the enemies is pretty simple, but it's still good enough to like make it so you can't just idle like you can in 2-3, which is the other auto-scroller. So here there's a bit of a break. The game kind of gives you a bunch of free coins and stuff in the run up to the final fight. And you get to fly around in these corridors. I don't know. I don't really know why they put this part in the game. I think it's just supposed to give you a break, calm down before the final boss. One of my favorite things in this game is coming up, though. Just from a, like, comedy perspective. There's a free mushroom here that you can get if you do die to the boss. You can get that mushroom. There's these punching fists. They have piranha plants in this game, and they come out of the pipes. So this is the second to last boss. Anyway, but they chose to have punching fists. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I think it's very funny. Here's the final boss, Tatanga. I purposely take damage, or don't really avoid taking damage, because I just want to be inside of Tatanga and shooting fireballs as fast as I can. You can use both buttons to shoot, or not fireballs, but bullets, I guess. You can use both buttons to shoot bullets, so you can spam really fast. Alright, on to Super Mario World. If you are a fan of my channel, you will recognize what I'm doing in this game. It's a credits warp. Like the Super Mario Bros. 3 warp, I will be using the sprite X coordinate table to write the code. It's more bytes of code. It's, I believe, 5 bytes of code. But it happens in the very first level of the game, so you don't have to get any warp whistles. You just do it. So it's very quick. Though I believe I had problems in this specific run. Okay, so the very first thing you have to do, and you saw me fail there, is you have to duplicate the Yoshi block. And specifically, you have to duplicate it to the right. And so you do that by standing in a certain area and jumping, and then like kicking the red shell up at the right height. I failed it again. No bueno. And I, yeah. Basically just need to reset the level, because if I fail that, then I can't like retry it without restarting the level. So I have to die, essentially, since I haven't completed the level, I can't start select out. I need to scroll the screen over because I need to like despawn the Yoshi eggshell fragments at a certain frame of their animation so that they have certain velocities when they despawn. Anyway, that's just like a setup to despawn one of the eggshell fragments at the right time. Next up is spitting the red shells out. Basically the way this works is when you pick up a red shell in Yoshi's mouth and then spit it out, when you spit out that red shell, it momentarily like sets the X coordinate of the red shell to whatever, like wherever Yoshi's mouth is, and then it deletes the red shell. And so whatever X coordinate that red shell had when it got spit out is kind of locked into memory in the sprite X coordinate table. So we do that 5 or 6 times. It's 6 times, but only 5 of those are actually like code. And this is the last one. And then once, yeah, and then you need to do another little like memory manipulation trick here, which involves like kicking the shell at a certain spot on the screen. And then everything is set up to go do the item swap. So this is a glitch that involves eating a charge and chuck, which the game did not plan for, and that ends up running well. In this case, it didn't end up doing anything. So that was what's called a first frame chuck eat. And it is the bane of my existence. If you eat a charge and chuck within the first frame after it's been loaded into the game, it's like not counted as an active power-up, and nothing happens. And it doesn't run the arbitrary code, it doesn't give you a cloud, just nothing happens. It's the worst. And I don't know why certain like executions of the item swap will give a first frame chuck eat like that. It doesn't happen most of the time, but when it does, it's just so frustrating. So I ended up just having to die and do the whole setup all over again. Since the chuck is gone and dead, you just have to do the whole setup all over again. So doing the exact same shell spits and everything, the whole thing. This is a big time loss. This was by far the biggest time loss in the run. I lost probably like 2 minutes to, I guess you can see in my live split window in the bottom right, you can kind of see how much time I have lost versus, like on the very right, that column is how much time I've lost versus my best ever time in that like level, and so it's about 2 minutes right now. So I lost 2 minutes versus the best, like my best possible execution of that credits warp. I have to wait until that credits scene comes fully into view before I'm allowed to reset, according to the rules that I made up. It's just so you can like verify that the credits loaded correctly and everything. All right, so I put the Super Game Boy back in, but this time we're running Super Mario Land 2. This one has a really interesting credits warp, and I love this credits warp. I think it's the most visually interesting. I just need to like beat this level and then another level, and then I actually can get to it. But this game has a glitch. The 1.0 version of this game, the original release of this game, has a glitch called the pipe glitch. When you're going down a pipe and you exit a level, like while going down the pipe, the game remembers that you were going down a pipe. And so there's a couple ways to exit a level while you're going down a pipe. You can, if you beat the level before, you can press Start Select. That'll exit the level, and if you do that while you're in a pipe, that works. You can also die the frame you enter a pipe, and that's the much harder way to do it, but it's also faster in some places. Like if you haven't beat the level, you can't Start Select. So in this run, in the like the world record iteration of this run, you actually do trigger the pipe glitch by dying on the frame that you enter a pipe, and you can get out of bounds that way. So with the pipe glitch active, what'll happen is the game thinks you're in a pipe going downwards, and it'll just like move you down a couple tiles. And it's basically a very easy way of basically clipping out of bounds. You get outside of the level bounds, and from there you just start falling. You'll see what I mean in a minute here, but you start falling, and you actually can go far enough out of bounds of the level that you eventually get to a place where there's no level data anymore, and the game starts reading level data from from parts of memory that don't contain level data. They contain things like the game code or bits of memory used to track graphics or things like that. So here we go. I start select while going down the pipe, and then when I re-enter the level, it boots me out at the bottom of the level. I start falling, and here is where the level data ends. So this is called the garbage. And there's a very specific path that I need to take through the garbage. It involves going through some fake pipes, riding some like invisible conveyor belts, and there's a lot of very specific things I have to do, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So far in this run, everything has gone well. I don't remember actually how well this goes in this run. I think everything goes pretty well. This is called the Pixel Perfect Pipe. I have to basically, there's an invisible block above that pipe that you can see, and so I have to like slide to a stop to duck under that invisible block at a pixel perfect coordinate. If I don't go far enough in, then I can't go down the pipe, and if I go too far, then it basically like boots me out, and I have to restart the level. From there, once I slide to a stop at the right pixel, I have to unduck and then press down just for a single frame. So when you unduck, your Mario is sort of like colliding with that invisible block, and it'll push you out of the invisible block, and you can't get through it anymore. So you have to unduck for just a single frame, and the way we do it is we unduck and then press pause on like the same frame, and so you can like pause buffer, and then you just start holding down again to like pause buffer, pressing down again. So that's why you see me pressing pause. I'm trying to unpause and then let go of down and press pause again on the next frame. And anyway, if things go well, you make it through this pipe, and you basically get to go down past a row of unbreakable blocks, and you have to go through that route if you want to make it down there, basically. And then from there, there's some more garbage to get through. There's like some invisible conveyor belts and stuff. This part is like pretty free form. It's kind of an art just making it through this part. You just kind of like got to use your force of will to make it through. But then you get to a spot called the floor, and you can see the floor down below me right now. I was trying. There we go. Once you're down to the floor, you can pretty much just make a run for it. And so all of these blocks represent some part of memory, some byte of memory. Each block represents a different byte of memory. And so if you break a certain block, basically it amounts to, in memory, what happens is you're setting a debug flag that they left in the game. And this debug flag gets checked every time you enter a level. And if this debug flag is set, then when you enter a level, it will play the credits. And so I broke the block, I set that flag, and I re-entered the level in order to play the credits. So we saw just a couple frames of the credits there, and then I move on to the next game because, it's a speed run and I'm trying to go fast. And the next game is the last game, which is Yoshi's Island. So this game you actually play as Yoshi with Baby Mario on your back. This game will also involve writing arbitrary code to the sprite X coordinate table, like we did with the Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World with the red shells. But in this game, the way that the X coordinate sprite X coordinate table is laid out is a little bit different, and it basically stores the pixel that you're at and the subpixel all next to each other in this giant table. And so basically what that means is you have to despawn sprites such that not only is their pixel what you want in terms of getting arbitrary code, but the subpixel has to also be correct. Anyway, there's setups to throw eggs so that when they despawn, they have the right X coordinate and subpixel. A subpixel, by the way, is like a 256th of a pixel. So here I'm doing a bunch of stuff, but this is all just basically sprite slot manipulation in an attempt to get my certain sprites into certain, in a certain order. Kind of like I did in Super Mario Bros. 3. Basically just so that the code will be in the right order and in the right place when I throw these eggs. So these are the eggs that I need to throw. Again, these setups are 100% consistent, but they do take a little bit of work to get the angles of the throws right and stuff, but they are 100% consistent. So it's not too bad. So I've set up 3 of the 4 throws that I need to do in order for the arbitrary code that I need to run the credits. There's one more that I need to do at the end of the level, which is coming up right here. And then from here, I'm going to go on to the next level and activate what's called the tongue glitch. So the tongue glitch is basically, it's a little silly, but basically when you stick out Yoshi's tongue, eventually it goes out a certain distance, and then it retracts, and then once it hits Yoshi's head, it stops retracting because its tongue is back in his head. With the tongue glitch though, Yoshi's tongue goes out and then comes back, but it misses Yoshi's head, and it keeps going past Yoshi's head and just never stops. And so the tongue keeps retracting farther and farther to negative infinity, basically. Keeps retracting more and more. And it keeps overwriting more and more memory to try and draw all the tiles of Yoshi's tongue onto the screen. And eventually it overwrites a part of memory that causes the game to glitch out and run the code that you wrote to the sprite X coordinate table. So the tongue glitch is now active. None of the sprites are being drawn because Yoshi's tongue is overwriting all of them. Anyway, eventually Yoshi's tongue gets long enough that it overwrites that one byte that causes the game to crash, and it runs the arbitrary code. It's a very finicky setup, very tricky, very precise, but it's a very suspenseful way to end the run too. So 58:36 is the final time. Like I said, I don't know if I said this actually, but anyway, I completed I think 3 or 4 runs this week in under an hour. This was my best one, so this is the one I wanted to share with you guys. It had pretty good execution overall. I got a little bit screwed over in a couple places, but overall I'm pretty happy with how things went, and I think a lot of time could be saved from this for sure. And I think I might want to do some more of these runs. It was actually pretty fun. I don't really like the first part, Super Mario Bros. 1 and Super Mario Bros. 2J, the Lost Levels. I don't really like those first 2 games that much, but after that, the run gets pretty chill, and then it gets really intense and suspenseful at the end when you just waiting to see if these credits warps are gonna work or if they're gonna crash. Because a lot of the time they do crash. You saw the successful ones in this one, but a lot of the time they will actually crash. But yeah, this is a very fun challenge. I wanna give a thank you to once again to Darbian for just like the original idea for the Super Mario Hour challenge. I did talk with him when deciding what to do, like how to set up this challenge, and I think this was a fun one for me. It's a little bit easier than the Super Mario. It's quite a bit easier than the Super Mario Hour challenge. There's a lot more wiggle room, a lot more room for error. I think if you added Super Mario 64, though, it would be like harder than the Super Mario Hour challenge. So I don't know if anyone's gonna run this category. There's a leaderboard for it. There's rules for it. Other people could run it. I hope other people run it. I don't know if anyone will ever run it with Mario 64 added onto the end, but they would be a brave soul if they did. Maybe I'll do it someday. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with this. I also like got a lot of help from the individual communities for the various games. Like, you would not believe how friendly and helpful other speedrunners are for helping you learn. Like, everyone wants you to have a good time and enjoy running whatever game it is that that they're playing and you're playing. So if you helped me with this, thank you. I really appreciate the help. I got a lot of help in trying to learn these games. Yeah, if you want to check out, there's some more info in the video description. There's a link to a document that has like the rules for this game and some resources if you want to learn it for yourself. This challenge, that is. If you want to learn it for yourself, there's a bunch of route notes and route tutorials and all that stuff for all the games. Otherwise, that's about it. Thanks for watching.